Hello everyone, welcome back to Recruitment Ops. I did it again. Today I am here with friend, fellow co-founder, fellow Ops Tribe member, Victoria Doig of Helix RecOps. Hi.
Hi. I'm going to correct you on my surname. It's
Doig. No. What did I say? Doig.
You can keep that in. It's Doig.
Doig. What do I say?
Doig.
I'm such an English as a second
That's
language.
It's all right. Leave that in if you want.
Doig. Yeah, we'll leave it. Yeah. So we're hanging out today because we're doing some work anyway, and we thought we'd record an episode of Recruitment Ops. I did it again. For those that don't know you, could you give us a quick intro into who you are, what you do?
Yep, I am Victoria Doig. I am a fractional ops director support in the recruitment industry, and I run compliance, SOPs, process, any of those flows, and a little bit of tech.
Yeah, basically everything that everyone likes to not do.
Absolutely everything you don't want to do. I'll put my hand up.
Nice. And we're actually working out of an office today, which a couple of your clients work from. Tell us about Helix RecOps then. You know, what are you up to like today? What's been the most interesting thing?
Yeah, I mean today is all been about scalability, workflows, and what sort of tech we're using to get there.
Yeah.
You know, we're using some of the finest tech in the businesses that I'm lucky to work in across my business and I contract for. So it's basically someone said to me today, tools don't scale, workflows do.
Yeah, love it.
So using that I'm going to take that line, use it in my business.
Yeah.
But it's wicked. It's like, what tech are you using? How are you using it? What's the best process? You know, not every system does everything perfectly, so there's got to be a solution elsewhere. So that's what we're doing.
Tools don't help you scale, workflows do.
Yeah.
I love that. That's so good, isn't it?
It's cool.
Yeah.
Like that.
I mean, we do a lot of process stuff in our day-to-day jobs, of course, and we're looking after the process workflow stuff for rec experts. So, let's go back to your journey, because I find that's been a really interesting one to talk about. So how on earth does someone, I was going to say from the Highlands, which
not far.
Was it not far? Okay.
Not far.
How does someone from where you're from end up in the wonderful world of recruitment, sitting in the office in London today recording this?
I mean, it all came down to an accident with a horse. You know, fell off a horse, had to get a job, and that happened to be in an office. Equine trained. And had an accident, broke my fingers, couldn't do it anymore, so ended up going inside to, I actually worked for Aviva in insurance sales, and I was terrible at it. So I ended up on the CS team.
What's TS, sorry?
CS.
CS,
It's a customer service team.
Yeah.
Where you used to upsell, I was good at that bit.
Yeah.
And ended up, my husband and I decided that we needed a change, and we moved to London, and I got my first job at Adecco.
Adecco, yeah.
Back office, didn't even know it was a recruitment company.
Really? What did you think you were going in for?
I had no idea. No. I knew it was a customer service based job,
and
it would be processing timesheets, learning back office, compliance.
Yeah.
But I didn't know probably for the first year and a half that it was a recruitment business. I used to work for computer people and I didn't know how they were connected. I just knew that I got a salary every month and I was 22 years old.
Oh wow, 22. Yeah, it's interesting because someone I had on Hayley Packer from Heads actually didn't get into recruitment until she was in her like almost late 20s. And she also went in for an interview and didn't quite know what she was going to be doing, and then it turned out that she was becoming a recruitment consultant. So do you think you just didn't know that you were in the recruitment industry because it was Adecco and because it was so big, or why do you think that was? Was it just because you were young?
Yes, it was because I was young, and you know, in equestrian life's very different. It's not structured like it is now. I mean, it might be more so now because of employers' rights and stuff, but I didn't know I had paid holidays or, you know, took bank holidays. They just don't exist when you're into eventing and show jumping and stuff. You just crack on and you're up at 4 a.m. and you come back at midnight. You know, those kind of things. And what actually made me realise was that it came close to Christmas and I got told I had 15 days holiday to take. I was like, what? I can't afford to take time off. I'm on like 19k or 20k, whatever it was.
Yeah.
You know, I can't afford to take time off. I've got bills to pay. And they're like, no, you get paid for your holidays. And then I met a gentleman who used to work for Jonathan Wren. I can't really even remember his name. And he basically told me about my holidays, and you know, you actually have to take this time off and you get bank holidays, about bank holidays, but he told me about bank holidays. And that's how it all happened. He talked me through the recruitment process, how they used the system. They used to use a system, I think it was homemade, called Tess, which was really good.
Was it as their CRM?
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And then from there on, I took an interest into the systems, how they worked, because we used to process millions and millions of payroll on immediate weekly and monthly payrolls. I ended up running that team long term. I took in a project I joined in a project for a PeopleSoft 9, which is going back along with an Oracle, I think, system, if I remember. And I got to help run that, do the testing, learned about the wirings and the complications and the risk, and here an ops person was born.
Yeah, nice. Was that payroll admin role that you were in first? Were they split by division? So you looked after one division, one brand, or was that just Adecco?
Yeah,
payroll?
so it's actually a funny stage of Adecco's life, because when I was actually employed, it was for computer people.
Right, got you.
I want to say, not name dropping, but I think it was Matt Collingwood, who was one of the leads at the time. And I can't remember if he was in the Piccadilly office, but from memory, did my interview in the Piccadilly office, might have spent a week there, and then we moved to Bournemouth head office, where all of the basically administration went, payroll, you name it, and then future years it went to Birmingham. But it's a fun time.
I did not know Adecco's headquarters were Bournemouth.
Yeah.
My dad lives on the corner from there, actually. I never even realised.
It's now, I think, Sky Studios Learning Centre.
Right.
Yeah.
So started off in recruitment without knowing you were in recruitment. Yep. Was that project then the first segue into becoming the ops person? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What was that like?
Absolutely loved it, but terrifying at the same time. I remember my manager at the time was on annual leave, so I had to run the calendar monthly payroll, which was gigantic, and we're talking some of the biggest accounts in the world on this. And there's me, I think I was 24 by this point. With my sort of not team lead, but like department managers, a lot of managers and directors with me, and I remember it being 8 o'clock at night, and we're having to run millions and millions of payroll. But there was a chance, and it was a very small chance, that it could duplicate and everyone get double in their accounts. And I was petrified, and trying to get someone to sign that off was hard. We went with it. It was fine. The implementation team were brilliant, and I just had to trust them. But when you're 24 years old, it does something to you. But you're now craving that experience again, and you're not that you want it to fail, but you want to there's like an energy that it gives you and a drive. You knew it could go one of two ways, even though the marginal error was small, but it was still there. Yeah. It's like an adrenaline rush almost.
The jeopardy,
The jeopardy. Wrong. There's a learning, that's for sure.
I had to help a client of mine run their payroll whilst they had some people on annual leave, and I'm just looking at this 7-digit number for the weekly payroll, thinking, good God, we've got to get this right. And there's so much tech involved. Some of the projects that I've been on were linked to it, and I was like, please God, don't let an integration project I'm helping on fuck up this weekly pay run, and then people don't get paid, because the agency is so big on experience.
Yep.
Okay, so 24, running huge payrolls, as well as some of the projects that you're doing. How long did you stay at Adecco? Where did you go to next?
I was at Adecco for, I think it was 4 or 5 years. I can't really look at my LinkedIn profile. I probably couldn't tell you, but it's about 4 or 5 years. And I had the best experience. If I'd not been made redundant, I think I'd probably still be there. Yeah. The team, and even the bigger team at Adecco, just wonderful. Loved every minute. I had brilliant managers and senior managers and so forth. And some of them have gone off to be work at Venn Group and S3, and some of them have gone abroad. Set up their own. So it was a fantastic experience. So sadly, we got made redundant. I want to say it was 2010.
Was that were they offshoring, or what was the reason?
They were moving our jobs to Birmingham. Basically, I think long story short, you don't know these things in your 20s, but you assume, I think it was just cheaper to run it from there. We're North London essentially, I suppose, aren't we? And that was that we did get offered, do you want to move to Birmingham? And I think for anyone that's my age and at the time, moving to London was a big enough thing, but we didn't want to go back up the road. So that was a no. I think quite a lot of us were made redundant during that period. My team certainly went from about 24, and I think I was one of 6 left.
Right.
So it was a sad day when we all eventually left, but I tried to travel to Australia through this point, went through a visa process with my husband, and then got this offer of this job in a startup. with 4 people. I think I was either number 4 or 5, can remember, it's a long time ago.
Recruitment agency.
Yeah, in creative design tech.
Nice. And that's really interesting, because at 4 or 5 to be thinking about an ops hire, which I assume it was an ops focused role.
Yeah, it was actually basically contractor payments, like office manager.
Yeah.
So it was to come in, did everything from chasing timesheets, making sure contracts were sent, schedules. It wasn't as thick on the old compliance as we are now, but it was basically an all-in job.
Yeah.
You did everything. You could search offices, help sign offices, problems, onboarding, you name it, credit control, PO chasing.
Yeah.
Everything was done in this business. We had some really, I'm not going to say dodgy CRM that I can't even remember what it was called, RDA or something. Didn't link with anything because nothing did at the time. And our first proper CRM was Microdec Profile.
Microdec, yeah. Nice.
Where you had to run some kind of HTML script to get a report out the back of. But it did magic, it did what it needed to. So it was all that kind of role, and I stayed with them for nearly 9 years.
Wow.
The business was so fun, really nice people, nice bosses. Became a PLC in a couple of years, joined with another group called Hyams.
Wow.
And it was fun, we had opened offices in Sydney, Melbourne, Singapore, Hong Kong. I want to say there was one in France at some point. Caterham in London. That's a longer term business that we'd joined forces with. And it was a lot of fun, and I think at the end I was just there because I was comfortable and I needed to be shaken up to move out, kind of thing. Everyone else had kind of moved on, left, sold up, whatever. So
what was that like then, going from, I speak to a lot of people who start out in their recruitment careers, whether that's on the tools doing recruitment or like yourself in the back office piece, going from an Adecco, which is obviously just huge, giant, to a 5-person. I mean, you stayed the course, right? You saw them through. What was the biggest contrast? What was the difference? And would you say to anyone one is better than the other?
I mean, they've both got their pros and cons. So what I love about Adecco is it's structured. You have a job, you do it, especially in the back office. Like, I get the front office and recruitment, but there's still strong processes, things that need to be done. There's not much movement, there's not much element of risk there. From when I was there anyway, it was strong. It'd be as much as you couldn't get paid if the VAT box wasn't ticked on the system. It wouldn't complete the process. Whereas in the startup, you had the freedom to create, you had the freedom to use your imagination. And I think that's the difference. You're with Adecco, that's your job, this is what your job spec is, and you do it. In a startup with 4 people, that needed help as contract recruitment as well, and perm, it's go and use your imagination. Work out how to get into the back end of that client to get those POs that you've not got but you've paid your contractors, those kind of problems. Problem solving was big, and also having the opportunity to learn and understand. Like, I had no HR experience. I mean, I was before Adecco, as I've kind of mentioned, like, the experience was limited. I went in and I experienced everything. Every up and down you can think of in recruitment happened there. I even did some like internal hiring, got involved in some resourcing. I'm not a natural recruiter, but I learned the process, I ran the process and helped with the process. So it was wicked, loved it. I would say, depending on what type of human you are, if you're one of those people that needs structure, needs regulation, go to the Adeccos, go to the Michael Pages, go to the Hayes, whoever. But if you're up for the challenge and you think you can run with it, get a startup.
Yeah, nice.
I spent a lot of time in pubs though.
I can imagine. Do you know, I like bringing structure to chaos. So I think I've always worked in the SMB space. And you're right, it is just more free flowing. You're in the pub a bit more, but you're also in founder-led organizations where, quite frankly, you're sweeping up behind impulse or emotional decisions as opposed to sensible ones. So 9 odd years at this startup, which went on to become a cell or PLC, I think you said.
It became a PLC, and then it was sold probably a year after I left.
Yeah. Nice. What do you think they got right? What was it that they got right? Because that's everyone's dream, right? You hear about it. And operationally, specifically, what did they get right? And don't just say they had you.
No, because, there was me, but there was also others by that time, you know. I think from my perspective, knowing what I know now, I would have changed a lot, maybe in regards to structure and the type of, workforce we took on and what they were good at, maybe.
What do you mean by that? Sorry,
So, a lot of people take on, the grads were big, or, people with no experience, but they might have a degree in psychology. Would just be good, those kind of individuals. I think, maybe just from my experience, I was young and potentially captured this all wrong in my brain, but it could just be that I'd probably just hire a different type of person to run some of those jobs. But also with the business, maybe invested more in really good quality tech. We did end up on Bullhorn, which was wicked, because it was just when Bullhorn had their bad stage and they came out of the light and started doing those Bullhorn live shows and stuff. And that was wicked. It was a hard migration, but it was really fun. I think if we'd maybe chosen different, invested maybe more in our tech at that point, then it would have been a different story.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. Was there ever a time when you were in that startup on its way up that you thought, God, I want to go back to Adecco?
Oh yeah, many times, many times. And it could have been when I got into more of the HR type stuff. I just didn't understand the regulations around it.
Right, yeah.
Or what was what, offer letters.
And sorry, you were the de facto HR person?
I was de facto. I would get an email that sometimes, if you were lucky, had their details, like their name on it, but, I'd have to ask for information. But it was learning all the way. Thank God for things like APSCO meetings and stuff back then, such an education. But I was very lucky to have people that were around me that were, well up to speed on this stuff. And quite often I'd be sat there taking notes and not understanding why I was taking notes.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was de facto on most stuff. Yeah.
How did you end up leaving that place then? What was the reason for the move, and where did you decide to take yourself next?
After I'd left there, what happened? I'd had my daughter by this point and wanted a bit more of a life balance. Everyone else that had started the business with me had left or sold out in various ways and sort of moved on to different, better things. Like some of them are doing completely different jobs all over the world, and or they're in TA, or they've started up their own businesses. It set a lot of people up for a really good course in their lives, and they're all doing really well. But for me, it was, by that point, everyone had left. I was just there, as I say, out of a comfort. I knew the business. Why would I leave? I had a young daughter and a young family, and the hours suited me, the salary suited me. So why would I do it? So eventually I woke up one day and went, I need to do something for myself. And so I did try back in 2019 to start going solo.
Okay.
So
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I thought, I'll give up this job and start a new one. So I did, and I was very lucky just to be hands-on, and landed a couple of contract roles, enough to sort of pay the bills, the schools, all this kind of stuff, keep everything afloat. And
doing the ops consulting stuff. You were ahead of your time, really, because the first, I think 20. When I launched my business, there was like 4 people that launched the business to do the same thing in the same period of time. So I always thought we were the first wave, but you are the pioneer.
Yeah, I just decided that there was just an opportunity, and my friends had started up businesses and they just struggled with that back office support. I wasn't as pricey as I am now, but it gave me an opportunity. They gave me an opportunity. They gave me sort of a taste for what was to come now, later on down the line. So I got a couple of jobs, etc., and then and that went on for about 3 or 4 months, and it was great. And I did some ad hoc stuff with just sort of like random people that just needed operational help, not necessarily recruitment. And then we came to sort of, I think it was October that year, 2019, and I got a call. I can't remember if it was Camino or who it was. It might have been Camino. It was Camino.
Yeah.
Camino Sachin's bunch.
Wow, so they placed you.
They placed me. Placed me a couple times, I think.
Yeah.
So Sachin's bunch, and they basically said, there's a mat leave coming up at First Point Group. Would you be interested? And I was just like, I recognise this name. Did my research.
They're massive, right?
They're good. Yeah, they're good size. They got US, so they're in Dallas. Hong Kong, Shenzhen.
I met them recently. I think they've got contractors in 190 countries or something crazy like that.
You should try doing the sales support on that. No, it's brilliant.
It's massive.
Yeah. So I spent 3 years with them. I think it was just short of that. So we ran the whole COVID through that.
Yeah.
A lot of change, but what an experience! Like, I loved that business. I absolutely loved it. But I think after COVID, I was just generally tired and grumpy, and realised that this was not what I'd set out to do in 2019.
Yeah.
But that business was great.
Yeah.
I loved it. I loved the people. The bosses are wicked. If anyone gets the opportunity to work with them, they must. And just generally good life. I did like it. Met some really good friends, and I'm still friends with them now. And some of them, I suppose, colleagues to an extent. but the compliance in there is where that element really sunk in. We were doing compliance audits through COVID at like 5 o'clock in the morning with, China, which was really hard for me from a laptop. Yeah. But, full support from the MD and the CEO and so forth, and we're getting it done.
Is it the same leadership there now as it is now?
Yeah, minus 1 or 2, I think. It's the same MD, same CEO, and a couple of other heads are still there. It's fantastic. But the learning around, just international recruitment, even at a much bigger level than I'd done before, especially working in China. Yeah. And the complications with like Hong Kong at the
regions,
time. And it would even come down to our tech stack, because at the time we'd have to get like Citrix platform in place so that we could actually use our database in Shenzhen. A lot of complications, but it was wild. And I had a fantastic team. I think I had a team of 11 at the time underneath me while I was going through the mat cover. Ended up doing 3 consecutive mat covers, so that's why I ended up being there for so long. But I went on a perm contract after the first one. Loved it.
Yeah,
absolutely
amazing.
Loved it.
And was that your? So we did payroll, did everything for the startup, HR, internal reg, and then this one, heavy compliance, obviously with it. Is that when the compliance piece came in? Because I always think of you as, well, I think Kalpesh always refers to us, doesn't he? He's like, my 2 ops people are Sai and Vic. Sai for tech and sales ops, and then he always says you for compliance and payroll ops and stuff like that. Yeah. Are you happy with that, Monica?
I mean, that's fine. It's fine. Yeah. I mean, when I say payroll, I just want to make sure that everyone knows it's not internal payroll. Yeah. Can't stand it. Yeah. Don't ask me to do your staff payroll. I'll come in and help you out with some documents and processes and stuff, but I'm not doing it.
Contractor payroll and compliance.
It's definitely where it became more of a stronghold, because in the other businesses we didn't really have many or any contractors in the other global regions, mainly just UK. So UK I can do with my eyes closed, but I had to really learn and work with some of the sort of AOR partners that we had to sort of learn about that side of the businesses and the margin you lose and the margin you gain and all this kind of stuff.
Can you say what AOR is? Explain what AOR is versus AOR is employer of record, right?
And it's just agency
of record.
Yeah. Clear. They do slightly different things, but the same thing essentially. Yeah. So, I'm working out with our partners and doing the preferred supplier agreements. Sorry, I'm total fog there. But learning about these companies, what they did, and going through a process. First Point Group was also where I got my interest in doing my ISO exams, which we just talked about. Because I'm going to hopefully qualify at some point. Yeah. But they are ISO qualified, so or registered to achieve it. So we're really strict on following the process, keeping to the process and making sure we did it properly. So it was heavily ingrained in me by the time I left that business, what needed to be done. Yeah. But not just what needed to be, why it needed to be done. So, hats off to those leaders. They gave me a real kick in my career and actually gave me an interest into what I wanted to do moving forward. So I'd say that's where my compliance.
From that,
but it was still a very rounded role. Still, I'd get the information for the new boards on start to still do all that process, and I'd manage the sales support team and stuff globally. But that was where it came from.
Compliance is not a sexy topic. Right, no one likes talking about compliance. Nope. Actually, when you speak to, or most of the agencies I speak to, as soon as I mention, what about compliance, they're like, well, what about it? Let's just get the deal done, right? Yep. You just tell us what we've got to do. Do you love it? Do you enjoy it? Like, is it because it pays the bills and you're good at it? Like, because I don't mind it. I think it's a selling point personally, but where do you stand on it as a general part of ops?
I know, it's important. Yeah. I think it's where it comes down to, I'm not going to lie, I don't love it. Yeah. But I know it. And for some reason, my brain takes it in. Yeah. I'd much rather know some of the flows for your CRM projects and stuff than the flow for a compliance. Anyway, but again, it comes down to those that I've worked with and, that are now in bigger businesses or different businesses and the experiences they gave me, You can actually enjoy compliance if you understand what it means. It's just when you get a really technical legal document and you've got to break it down, it's really hard. Yeah. But I enjoy it because it's got an outcome. If something is just a process and there's no proper outcome, it's just dull. I can't deal with it. I don't know what my brain, how it functions there. But it's not sexy, but it needs to be done.
Because I constantly bang on about process being more important than tech. And I think everyone thinks of me as a super process. I'd say you are more process driven and focused than I am, actually.
Oh, really?
I think so, yeah. I don't know whether that's because I'm a recruiter masquerading around as an ops person versus like a purist ops and back office, middle office person.
Yeah.
That's super interesting. What was the most challenging project that you were a part of at First Point Group? Would it be the audit stuff? And
I did, I think one of the biggest things was that I did there, and I'm super proud of it, is that I had to do, I can't say the client name, but I had to do basically a global GDPR audit. The session went on for 7 hours, and we're doing it over VC with China.
wow.
And it was going through every process, how we did it, what we did for it, preparing documents, showing documents. And the outcome of this was that we'd get put on more global PSLs, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And that we, continue as normal with certain projects. And it was an experience. It took a lot of time to prepare for, but it was one of the longest days of my life. But the outcome was fantastic. I was so pleased that we passed, even just to, for my boss at the time, just to say we passed, it was good, well done, it was just wicked.
Yeah, I can imagine. Then do you have one more full-time role before you've come back into your consulting?
Yes, so Calpesh headhunted me from First Point Group. There you go, said it, leave that for them. So,
yeah.
I was really sad to leave, but I think it was the right time. I was getting grumpy by that point for no reason other than my own need to do something different. And I went to Hamlin Williams for just short of 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So in that business, I think when I started, we had Brian Van Aken was the CEO. I want to say Calpesh was the CEO.
Yeah.
We had, I think, 250 sales heads, circa, we had an ELT and SLT, ops, and then basically had to go and do some restructuring and so forth in that business. We also, between myself and a lady called Shrutha, and others obviously were involved in the process, like Brian and Catherine, we removed our Asia part of the business to another local business, which took it, and which was great. It's a great outcome because it meant you didn't have to sort of make any redundancies and so forth,
amazing.
Which was fantastic, and it was a result around in it. And I spent just short of 2 years in there. Made some real progress around sort of revenue streams, just processes internally, how things operate, making sure everything was compliant. It was a real ride. I've met 2 or 3 of my best friends for life in that business. But then I kind of realised at that point that maybe working in a 200 plus sales community isn't necessarily for me.
Yeah.
I loved it, but from the back office, I'd be more than happy just to work with the finance team, the marketing team, the ops team, sales support team. I don't need to be on the floor, but that I had to be with the sales team quite a bit, doing making various calculators, or talking about margin and margin erosion because of X, Y, and Z. It was tough, but it was a really good experience.
Yeah.
And as Calpesh and I always talk about, he always says that no experience is a bad experience.
No, I agree.
And I take away a lot of good out of my time there.
Yeah. What across your you mentioned earlier, actually, I wrote down here AppSco and things like that, and the resources that you've been able to lean on throughout your time in ops in recruitment agencies. What would you say are the top 3 things that you've been able to lean on in your career? And let's talk about AppSco and the REC potentially, or the other networks and how they fit in.
I mean, I think every business that I've been with has been an AppSco partner.
Right.
So that's been great. We've had obviously access to all their resources, their learning hubs, their training sessions. That stuff's been fantastic over the years. And they're a friendly face when you see them at the Rec Expo and stuff. It's really good.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie, it's in the last 10 years that I actually worked out what the Rec was. So and I understand what they do and how they work. I've not been as hands-on, but I've definitely leaned on them for certain elements when I've needed to. And they've been great more recently with me actually wanting to be a member. So that's really good. I'd say the biggest sort of, I'd probably say person to lead, it's actually the people I've been led by.
Yeah.
I've got great ex-bosses, and I lean on them all for different things, and most of them have turned into sort of mentors, and educators. So it's like you. I'm not going to learn from a textbook. I need to take the information from you and kind of draw it out of you. And everyone's been very giving with information, or they'll sit me down and I'll ask them a question and they'll be really forthcoming with, maybe try this, or this doesn't work because of this, or maybe like think about it in this way and from this perspective. And a lot of them really took me under their wing and just sort of taught me what I needed to know. And this is the good, bad and ugly bosses to some people, but for me they're all great. I've been very, very lucky to have worked in all of the businesses. I've had people to lean on and learn from.
Yeah, I mean, you work with my dad.
Yeah,
so he's a good bloke.
I work with your dad.
Yeah. Okay. We're in a world of lots of tech and lots of AI. I'm sure that causes headaches from a compliance standpoint. Yeah. Causes headaches from a process standpoint. Where do you see that going in 2026? How do you see that impacting, in your capacity as fractional ops director for recruitment agencies? How much is AI and the evolution of tech playing a part in your thought process?
It's playing a decent part. If used in the right way, it'll be really effective and probably really efficient. The problem I'm finding when I'm going to businesses is that they think that a ChatGPT document is, the word, and it's correct. And then you get it reviewed or you have an audit, and it's just not the case. If you, for instance, I think we've talked about my tech stack before, but my tech stack is literally Notion, Claude, Gamma. What else did I have in there? Canva, I suppose, and chat, obviously. But what I normally do is I'll use chat for some of the detail and the content and maybe some of the more intricate details. And I take my chat and I put it into my Claude, and then I get Claude to sort of look at the process, write the process, and like document it. And it will make a beautiful form, but also tell me this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong.
Great.
And then I take that out of there. And then when it's just an extra case, I'll take the Claude document, I'll put it back into chat, it'll do some config, and then you've usually got a pretty decent document out there. Another thing I find really handy is when you mix it up with loads of documents to see how things have changed, and it'll flag them. So you can always test the systems.
Oh, nice. So what you put put two documents in side by side and say what's the difference. Yeah, nice.
So what I do is if you're doing like a handbook, you've got a whole load of policies written and you think that they all match up, you stick them into Claude, which is like sponsor me Claude. If you put them all into Claude, for instance, you say like, can you organize these so they're all like telling the same story, they're all in alignment. It'll tell you what they are, it'll flag them, it'll change them, and it'll redo your documents. So it just takes that strain off of the fact that you're going to go to your handbook, but make sure it goes with the disciplinary procedure that's in your handbook and in your contract and as a document policy. It takes the strains off. So everything should be faster, but this doesn't mean that you're going to pull out like 8 policies in 1 week. There's still a process, there's still a thought process, there's still a human element to this. So from putting the documents together and detailing it, absolutely brilliant, but just remember the human element still there. So
nice. That is such a good way of using AI for your business and for ops people to think about for using within their agencies. I'm a big fan of Notion. My VA has set up my Notion, so I've got like a nice visual of everything that she's working on and doing, and I'm fast becoming a fan actually.
Nice.
One of the things I like to get everyone to talk about is actually a younger you, or someone who's maybe working as a recruiter, thinking about going into ops, or someone who's doing office management or paying bill or something like that, who's thinking about a career in ops. What would you give them as 3 things to focus on in their careers, as three recommendations?
3 recommendations. Understand your industry, definitely. I think I probably... Recruitment
or the industry?
Just an industry you're in, yeah. I mean, understand the industry, because that's probably I've probably been ahead of the game probably a little bit more than I am now. Take time to learn and listen. It's super important. Learn from your peers. Listen to what they're saying. Learn tech. It's, I'm nearly 42 years old. And I'm not going to say that learning tech is my hottest subject. I'm a little bit slower. The brain fog comes in and I'm like, oh, what was I doing yesterday? Take time when you're younger, definitely, if you've got the opportunity to learn tech. Learn the basics of automation. Learn the basics of what APIs are, what webhooks are, how
Yeah.
they function. You don't need to know all the intricate details, you just need to know what they do.
Conceptually.
Yeah, so when you go into these meetings and you've got tool A wants to talk to tool B, and someone says, oh, well, you're going to have to do a webhook, what does that actually mean? So instead of sitting there in silence, learn about it, ask the questions, would be what I'd say.
Nice. Starting to get a trend now about being curious and asking questions through all the folks that I've spoken to so far.
Yep.
So to summarise, that was know your industry.
Yep.
Learn.
Yep.
And learn tech.
And learn tech.
Yeah. Learn, listen, and learn tech.
Yep.
Awesome. Do you think we're gonna have a good year this year?
I think we're gonna have a wicked year.
Yeah.
January was busy. I think with January, just from my perspective, was a lot of projects that were lined up from December that, you know, maybe got, not pulled, but pushed back because of like budgets and stuff. I think the end of last year was a bit slow, but this year, I think everyone's come in positive note, lots of action, ready to go. Something's changed in the wind. The conversations are good. This kind of stuff is happening. People are actually spending time together again. So yeah, I think 26 is going to be wicked.
Yeah, nice. And we've got Rec Experts.
We've got Rec Experts, which is totally cool.
That is very cool. Tell me why you're excited about Rec Experts.
Well, one, I think just for us to be able to build something that we believe in, and something that we've talked about for ages, and this has been going on for probably 2 years now. It shifts between a year and two, doesn't it?
It's got to be, yeah.
And you know, like, it's just us talking about information and each other, and do you know this person, or do you know that person, or have you tried this bit of tech with Calpesh, and then actually developing into something is so cool. Like, it's really something to be proud of, and I know we balance it around our current contracts that we do and the other people that we support in our lives and our families. You know, it's going to be worth it. And I'm lucky to work with you, Calpesh and Gary, on this, because I think we've all got our own experiences to bring and learn. And none of us, out of the four of us, we don't agree on everything, and that's so healthy, but we work it back. And we land where we need to.
I wish we'd gotten to the colour. The brand colours. I wish we'd got to that a little bit quicker. But agreed, we do work it back.
The purple is not my favourite colour.
I've got to say, Nick Brown the other day, actually, when I saw him from Device, he was saying, he was just saying it's such a good dream team. It's just so well balanced in terms of experience. I
do love Nick.
Got a lot of time for Nick. Well, all right. Thank you, Vic, for coming on. We've got some Rec Experts work to do. If you enjoyed that, please subscribe. Please throw your comments in. And if you would like to speak to Vic about compliance or just what she does as a fractional ops director, do reach out. I'll throw links in the comments.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Wicked.
Cheers.